Welcome back to Auto Culture, the channel where we dive deep into the fascinating world of military technology and engineering, with a special focus on Germany's contributions to the field. Today, we are going to explore one of the most interesting and historically significant anti-tank guided missiles of the Cold War era, the Cobra Anti-Tank Missile. Developed in the 1950s, the Cobra was one of West Germany's first major steps into modern missile technology after World War II, and it marked a turning point in the way infantry forces could deal with enemy armor on the battlefield. So buckle up as we take a detailed look at its history, design, capabilities, and impact on military tactics. The story of the Cobra begins in the early years of the Cold War. After the devastation of World War II, West Germany was restricted in its ability to develop weapons under Allied supervision. However, as tensions between NATO and the Warsaw Pact began to rise, there was a clear need to rearm West Germany to help defend Europe from a potential Soviet advance. By the early 1950s, the newly formed Bundeswehr, West Germany's federal defense force, required modern weapons to face the threat of massive Soviet tank formations. Traditional anti-tank guns were heavy and difficult to move around, and the emerging concept of guided missiles promised a lighter, more portable, and far more lethal solution. This is where the Cobra missile comes into play. Developed in the mid-1950s, the Cobra was West Germany's first domestically produced anti-tank guided missile. It was designed to give infantry units a way to destroy tanks from a safe distance without having to rely solely on artillery or heavy vehicles. The Cobra was a wire-guided missile, meaning the operator had to manually guide it to the target by keeping it in line with a sight, a technique often called MCLOS, or manual command to line of sight. This might sound simple, but it required a trained operator with steady hands, as the missile had to be guided all the way to impact. In terms of design, the Cobra was relatively compact and portable for its time. The missile itself was launched from a tripod or vehicle-mounted system, and it was powered by a small solid-fuel rocket motor. Once launched, the operator used a joystick to send commands through a wire that trailed behind the missile. This allowed for very precise control but also meant the operator had to stay exposed and keep visual contact with the target throughout the missile's flight. The warhead was a shaped charge, specifically designed to penetrate the thick armor of Soviet tanks like the T-55 and T-62, which were considered some of the most formidable armored threats of the time. One of the most interesting aspects of the Cobra missile was its range and accuracy. It could engage targets at distances of up to 2 kilometers, which was a big advantage for infantry units who needed to stay out of the effective range of enemy tank guns. Its warhead was capable of penetrating several hundred millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor, which made it deadly against most main battle tanks of its era. However, like most early wire-guided systems, it required a lot of skill to operate effectively, and training was critical. During the 1960s, the Cobra became a key component of West Germany's anti-tank defenses. It was used not only by infantry units but also mounted on vehicles to provide mobile firepower. The system was exported to several NATO allies, further cementing its reputation as a reliable weapon. The Cobra represented a significant leap forward from the simple recoilless rifles and bazookas of World War II, offering a guided solution that increased first-shot hit probability and reduced the risk to the operator by allowing them to attack from greater distances. But technology evolves quickly, and by the late 1960s and early 1970s, more advanced second-generation anti-tank missiles began to appear. Systems like the French-German MILAN and the American TOW missile offered semi-automatic guidance, which meant the operator simply had to keep the sight on the target and the missile would automatically steer itself. This was a huge improvement over the fully manual guidance of the Cobra. As a result, the Cobra gradually began to be phased out of frontline service, but its legacy lived on. It had paved the way for Germany's expertise in missile design and production, leading to even more advanced systems in the decades to come. One of the most important contributions of the Cobra program was the development of German industry and expertise in missile technology during a critical period. After the Second World War, Germany had been prohibited from developing many types of weapons, and projects like the Cobra were a way to rebuild a domestic defense industry within the framework of NATO. Companies involved in the development of the Cobra would go on to play major roles in producing other missile systems, including the MILAN and HOT missiles, which became some of the most widely used anti-tank weapons in NATO during the Cold War. From a tactical point of view, the Cobra changed the way infantry fought against tanks. Before guided missiles, infantry units often had to wait until tanks were very close before engaging them, which was risky and often deadly. The Cobra allowed them to engage tanks at longer distances, which gave them a much better chance of surviving and slowing down an armored assault. This shift in tactics was a precursor to the highly mobile, anti-armor teams we see in modern militaries today. Another fascinating aspect of the Cobra was how it was integrated into combined arms doctrine. In NATO planning, the idea was that tanks, infantry, artillery, and air support would all work together to slow and eventually stop a potential Soviet attack. Anti-tank guided missiles like the Cobra gave infantry the means to hold defensive lines even when they were outnumbered by enemy armor, buying time for reinforcements to arrive. Even though the Cobra might seem outdated today, it is still remembered as a crucial step in the evolution of anti-tank warfare. It showed that guided missiles could be practical and effective weapons for ordinary soldiers, not just high-tech experiments. The lessons learned from its development and use directly influenced the next generation of missile systems that went on to dominate Cold War battlefields. So the next time you hear about modern anti-tank missiles like the Javelin or Spike, remember that they all trace their roots back to early systems like the Cobra. It might have been simple by today's standards, but in the 1950s it was revolutionary, giving West Germany and NATO a powerful new tool to counter the threat of Soviet armor. Thanks for watching Auto Culture. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of the Cobra anti-tank missile and want to learn more about Germany's contributions to military technology, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. Drop a comment below and let me know which weapon system you'd like us to cover next. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring the fascinating world of military history.